What's up, everyone? This is Shane coming at you from Supersense live right here with John, an amazing blind artist. We're going to be chatting today for a little bit, having a conversation about what he does and how he does it. What's going on, man?
I'm sitting in my studio right now painting, so it's a good day. How's everything going with you?
It's going well. It's getting cold. It's getting cold. What state are you in? I can't remember.
Texas.
You're fine.
It's going to be 78 degrees
great
today, and it's beautiful.
Yeah. So are you painting like right now as you're talking to me?
Yeah. Well, I just stopped when the phone rang and we started talking. I laid my brush down, but yeah, I'm. It's hard for me to walk and chew gum at the same time. I'm one of those kind of people.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm working on a painting of Einstein. I'm working on a painting of a cat, and I'm working on a painting of this lady that's dancing. So I usually work on a few things at a time.
Cool. Yeah. Tell me about your process. What's your creative process like there?
Oh, because I can't see, I use my hands to do the work that my eyes used to do. So I have to wait for the paint to dry before I can judge it and make sure I did what I think I did. But I use lines. I use paint to draw lines that I can touch and feel. So the lines, they're raised up a little bit, or they feel a little different. They have a texture that's different than the surface that I'm painting on. And it's the same way with the paints. I make each color feel different. So the white feels different than the black, and so on. So that it gives me a way to be able to determine color and mix color by just using my sense of touch.
Oh, that's cool. How do you do that? How do you make the colors feel different? Is there something that you mix into the paint to do that?
Yeah. It's funny because most people think whenever I describe it to people, they think, "Oh, that sounds hard. That sounds crazy." But I work with museums all over the country, and I've done this one particular workshop with tens of thousands of people, children, adults, and I have them paint the way that I paint. Like I'll put a mask on them, and I'll give them raised line drawings that I've made, and I'll give them paints that I've made that each color feels different. And in 5 or 10 minutes, people are painting. It's sort of like a cartoon character kind of painting. But when it comes to art, it's just baby steps. But I just wanted to mention that because I know this sounds crazy, but it's incredible. If you actually give it a try, you start falling into it. But the way that I mix paints, though, it's actually super easy. The first thing I do is I just braille the tubes. So I have a braille label on each tube. So it's just like a sighted artist. If you were looking at your paint, you could read the tube and say, "Oh, this is orange," or "Hey, this is red." But for me, I just use a braille label, so I can use my fingertips and read it and say, "Oh, this is orange." And then,
Right.
But the better way though, and what's way more fun, is that I mix different mediums in with the paint. And if you're unfamiliar with paint, you might just think of paint being this kind of sticky, colored stuff, and that's pretty much all it is. So you've got a good grip on it, and that's pretty much it. But the sticky stuff is a medium. It's the stuff that actually holds the pigment, holds the color. You can change that medium. You can add different mediums to the paint to make it feel different. So there's mediums I can add to the paint to make it feel really, really thick, like toothpaste, or really runny, like oil, or I can make it feel like silk, or kind of bumpy, or gritty, or even so thick that you can carve it with a knife, or you can work it like putty. So there's all these different textures that you can add into the paint to make it feel different. And the great thing about that is that, if I'm working with a white, I can mix a medium into it that makes it feel like toothpaste. And it's just all sticky, and it's really thick. But then with the black, I'll mix a medium in with it that makes it runny like oil, and it actually feels oily. So if I have those two colors on my palette, there's no way I'm going to get them confused. The thick paint has to be white, and the runny paint has to be black. But even better than that, if I want to mix the colors, it gives me a way to control the color, because if I mix for a color that's halfway between that thickness of the white and that runniness of the black, then I know the color is also halfway between those. And I get a gray right between the white and the black. Or, if I want it mostly white or mostly black or whatever, I can just mix for the texture that's one way or the other. But it just gives you a way to be able to understand color without actually being able to see it.
That's really neat because I'm blind also. I don't know if I mentioned that to you, but I never I never had the burning desire to be a painter. I was never like, the universe has stolen it away. But like, I also never really contemplated like, oh yeah, I'm sure there's a way to do this, but I never really pursued it, because I never had like the drive to become a painter. And so hearing the solution that you have for this is super interesting to me. So
Oh
the
man, Shane. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead. I get
oh
really
no, I was just
excited.
gonna ask
I
if the
just lost it.
variations in texture are also visible in the paint. So when you
You know, it,
change the
it
medium,
depends.
can people see
You
that?
know, yeah. Well, it depends. Like a lot of times when I draw, because when I draw, I use a paint that I can touch and feel. But a lot of times when I draw, I'll use white paint on a white background, so that nobody can see my drawing except for me. Because I can feel it, but it makes it where when I actually start putting the colors on, I don't have to worry about dark lines or this or that. Other times I'll do a drawing with black lines. That way everybody can see it. And some of the textures are very thick. Like I have some textures that I paint mostly in acrylics now because they dry so fast and they give you such a nice range of texture. But there's the different mediums that I'm mixing with it. There's a one medium that I can mix in and it makes it look and feel just like oil paint. So it's that, if you think about Van Gogh and that thick, luxurious sort of painting, that's just, it's just incredible and the texture is wonderful.
Right.
Then I can get that as well. And it looks like it feels like it. And that's a lot of fun. But if I want it really, really thin, I can make it super thin. But the lines, even though they're not raised up very much, they feel different. So like there's this black that I mix up and it almost feels like rubber cement, except it's not that sticky, but it's kind of rubbery. It's a little sticky. It's a little tacky. And when I draw using that on a rough canvas, it's very different for me. So I don't need to have like a giant raised line. It just needs to feel different in some way.
Right. Yeah, of course. That makes perfect sense. And you
Oh,
mentioned
cool.
earlier too, on the side, you kind of mentioned that you were able to see in the past, or you said you can't since you can't see anymore. So tell me about your journey a little bit. Tell me about the history here.
Oh man, I think I could draw before I could walk, and I didn't lose my eyesight until I was in college. But growing up, I just drew, and I took every class I could. I was a huge nerd then, and I'm a huge nerd now. But I
Amen.
took every class.
We're gonna be great friends.
Awesome. And I read every book, and I just, so I learned how to do drafting, like for houses, how to draw blueprints for houses. I learned how to do portraits of people. I learned how to do cartooning. Anything that had to do with drawing, I tried to learn. But painting, I didn't think I'd be a very good painter. Like I revere painters. I love painters. I love to read about them. I was like the armchair quarterback for painters. Like I would read about Picasso and the way he would set up the studio and Monet and all these guys and what paints they would use and how they would set their palettes up. And I just loved it. And I would love to read stories about them. But I didn't think I'd be a good painter. So I just thought, well, I'll stick to drawing. But growing up, though, I literally drew every day. And a big part of it was my health. I was sick a lot. I was born with epilepsy and started having pretty severe seizures when I was 2 years old. And then it just got worse from there. And I was also born with kidney problems, and I ended up having a kidney removed by the time I was 7. And then later on, when I was early teenagers years, I ended up getting Lyme's disease, and that didn't play well with the epilepsy. But the Lyme's disease went undiagnosed for years because my neurologists, they weren't really looking for anything else because I was having this severe epilepsy anyway. So they weren't looking for Lyme disease. And this is like 20 years ago when Lyme disease wasn't very prevalent down here in Texas. So it wasn't like their first thought. but
Right. Yeah. Of course.
Yeah, it was just, and I was just in and out of hospitals a lot as a kid and just sick a lot. One thing that I had on my side though was my family, my friends. They never treated me any differently. Like they never treated me like, I don't know, I had a disability or had a problem or anything like that. Like, it was always like, you can do anything, you don't, I don't know, like you need to try things, you need to, so even if I was sick, if I was having a lot of neurological problems from this or that, or in and out of the hospital, it was just like, you can do it, and I never
That's
felt
perfect.
any different. But the other thing was art, though, because if I was having a bad day, like usually when I would go to the hospital, it would be for 2 to 4 weeks at a time. So I was in there for a good spell. That would be out for a month or two or three. Then I'd go in for another like month. And if I was in there and I was having a bad time, art is a really great way to deal with a bad day. You're not thinking about any of the bad stuff. You're not worried about anything. It's a really nice little mini vacation that you can take on a
Yeah,
daily
you get
basis.
lost in it.
Exactly.
It's really easy to become present with art,
Yeah,
I've noticed.
that's
I'm not
well
a
put.
I'm not a visual artist, but I'm a musician, and so that's what I do. When my day sucks, I get behind the drum kit, or I pick up the bongos, or I do, I work on music, and that's
Oh, that's
that's how I
awesome.
disconnect. That's one of the things that takes me away from, you know, November, December 2020. What's going on the calendar, all these time constraints, all of this society that we live in. So I completely
Oh
understand what you're
man,
talking about.
yes, absolutely. That's it. And if it's a good day, art is a great way to celebrate a good day.
Absolutely.
So
It makes it
so if you're
better.
happy, you wanna you wanna work, and if you're having a bad day, you want to work, and either way, it's a bad day or good day, it's always a good day for art, and it's just so I literally drew every day, and I never thought about making it a career. It was just the way I dealt with things, and it wasn't really important for me to show my drawings. Like I would draw, and whenever a paper was completely filled front and back, every little space of it, I'd put it in a stack, and when the stack got too high, I would just throw them away. It was about the act of
Wow.
doing it. It was just, if a drawing turned out, I thought, all right, cool, that's great. And I put it in the stack. If it didn't turn out, I'd be like, oh, I'm trying next time. I put it in the stack. It didn't really matter.
Right, yeah.
But because it was just what I did in school. Like if I had to write a paper, I would draw it out first. To get everything in my head. Like in the order that it should
How does
happen in
that
the story
work?
or something.
That is so
Just
cool. How do you draw out an academic paper? Tell me this.
just I would just doodle everywhere on everything. I always had whenever I was sighted, I always had like a little pad in my pocket and a pencil, and I always had a paperback novel. So I was either reading or drawing. I think I did
Yeah.
mention that I was a nerd, didn't I?
Yeah, I'm with it. I'm a
but,
avid reader, avid artist. You and I are going to be good friends. I'm enjoying this. I'm having fun.
man, oh, that's me too. This is awesome. Um, one of the things though that whenever I was in college, I started having these seizures where I was going in what they call status epilepticus, where you start having a seizure that you're not coming out of. And instead, most of the time with epilepsy, I mean, there's all different forms of epilepsy and different kinds of seizures, but the kind that I had, generally you have them, but then they'll calm down, and then you come out of it all, and you don't feel great, but but you come out of it, everything's fine. But I was
Right.
starting to have some seizures where I wasn't coming out of it, and they kept ramping up to the point where my breathing would stop, my heart would stop, the activity in the brain was just too much. And my neurologist said it was just like getting hit in the back of the head with a bat over and over and over. It was just these, and part of it might have been the cocktails of drugs that they were giving me to try to get the seizures under control. Because I was also, I had the Lyme disease that they didn't realize at that point. And then when they did find out
Right.
about the Lyme disease, they were trying to treat that, but it had been around for years. And so it was just sort of a big mess, that they were having to deal with.
Right, right.
And so I was having these seizures, and whenever I had these big ones, my vision would be a little affected whenever I would come out. And then finally, it was massively affected, and it just got worse from there. And when I was in college, I thought I had to leave school because I never thought about losing my eyesight. Like that wasn't something. I knew I had epilepsy, but then all this happened. But I was so fortunate though in the school that I went to. I mean, that they had a really strong Office of Disability Accommodation, that really stuck up for their students and really helped you. And I was already enrolled with it because of the epilepsy. And I dropped by there to basically say goodbye because I didn't see how I'd be able to continue doing school being blind, at least not right away, or maybe not at all. Like I had no idea. Had no clue what in the heck was going on. And so I went by there, and Ron, he was the director, and he knew me pretty well by then. And I said, well, Ron, I'm losing my eyesight, and it's not going to get any better. It's going to get a lot worse real quick, and it's going to, basically going to say, well, it's been nice knowing you. And he was like, well, he got the gist of what I was saying. He's like, well, you don't have to leave school. In fact, you can do whatever you want. You can be whatever you want. Like, we have every kind of accommodation. We have all this stuff going on. Like, there's no reason you have to leave school. You can do whatever you want. And I thought he was so nice, just to lie to me, to make me feel better. just
What
to
a
try
nice
to brighten
guy.
my day a little bit. I know. He's just like, gosh, Ron, you're such a small
Right.
guy. But he was just telling the truth. But I was so angry and I was so depressed at the time. And I was just ignorant of what was available. I had no idea. But because of that, though, I stayed in school. And, then the vision ended up going. But I would have a guide that would take me to classes. And I had a bit of a dark sense of humor, but I was an English major. But I would go to the English classes, and I was functionally illiterate at that point. I couldn't.
Oh, yeah.
So I was an English
I feel like
major.
English majors always have a dark sense of humor, though.
Heck yeah. Artists too. It's like musicians.
Yeah. I thought about being an English major.
But I would go there and I couldn't read the stuff, but I was learning the screen readers. I was learning Braille. I was learning all this stuff, and the big thing that I was learning though was O&M, or orientation and mobility training.
Yeah.
And but I was doing everything that I was supposed to. Like, we had a thing in Texas at the time where if you were a student at a university, the go-to was to try to keep you in school instead of you going like to the state school, like the College for the Blind, which in Texas is the Chris Cole School for the Blind. So instead of going there, they wanted you to stay in the university. So they would give you a lot of support. Like, I had a Braille teacher that came to me. I had somebody that came out to teach me JAWS, the screen reader. I had O&M, an orientation mobility person coming out to help me learn how to use a white cane. And I had, and then the people at school had sighted guides and stuff to help me get around classes while I was learning all this stuff. And I thought, on the surface of it, I thought, heck, John, you're going to be a great blind guy. You're doing everything right.
You're killing it.
Yeah, I'm killing it. This is awesome.
Yeah.
But on the inside, though, it didn't help a bit. I was so depressed and I was so angry. And I think it was kind of hidden from a lot of people too, because I didn't even realize how angry I was. Like, I felt like everything had been stolen from me and it had just been taken, because you go to college because you have ideas, you have hopes for the future, you have this plan, even if it's a vague plan. You've got this notion that things are going to be better in the future, and then
absolutely
suddenly with my vision going, after being such a visual person, I couldn't envision any kind of future. Like, I didn't see what could happen. And
that's the
my
brain's natural
dreams,
response. What the hell do I do with this? Like, what's
like, well, I literally felt I could do nothing new. I could make no changes in my life. I mean, my goal became just get a degree in something. Just get a degree and maybe I could get some kind of job and just not be a burden on my family, which my family would never think I was a burden. But that makes you not even want to be a burden more, or, in my mind, my thinking then. I was just so depressed. I just thought, I want to be independent. I want to stay independent. And that was just my goal. And I thought, but I can't really do anything, but maybe I can get some kind of job, something. I don't know.
Yes.
So that was the goal, and I was just so angry. But I was learning how to walk with a cane. And after about a year, I could leave my apartment and I could find the campus. I lived pretty close to school, but I was able to travel independently enough to be able to leave. That was a big thing because, oh my goodness, one of the big things about losing the eyesight was just everything felt foreign. Everything felt like it was out to get me. Like every time I would leave the apartment, I would end up with bruises and bumps and scrapes and running into things. And then you start learning how to use the cane and you're doing really well for a while. And then your concentration goes. Like, you're thinking about something else for a bit, and then before you know it, you're walking into a pole or a tree or something because you're not paying attention. And it's like,
it's true. And I always think about it too because I was born blind, so all of these skills came to me when I was in the prime of my cognitive life. You learn all this stuff when you're 3, 4, 5. It's
Oh
so
man.
it comes naturally. And so like when people come to me, they're like, "Man, you're such a hero. You're so cool." I laugh at them because I'm like, "This was easy. This was my whole life. Look at the people
Man.
who went blind in their 20s or in their teens who already have figured out how they're going to live their life. Their brains are literally wired already, and then they lose their vision and they have to rewire it all. It's crazy."
Man, there's challenges each way. It's just it's
Of course.
like yeah, gosh, it's man. But one thing that I noticed though is that the losing your eyesight was really hard. It was the hardest thing I ever went through. But once you make that transition, like once you learn, and that's one of the most important things I think that that I could say is that there's stuff out there, there's techniques out there, there's so much out there, and once you learn and make that transition, and you learn how to travel independently, you learn how to do different things, and in a way, how to basically use your hands and your other senses to take the place of your of eyesight, then you're good. Like you've learned
Yeah,
that,
yeah, absolutely.
and that's normal, and that's like the normal, and it's hard, I think, for a person with sight to even imagine what it would be like to not have sight, and that you can live a happy, fulfilled kind of life, and that it's enjoyable, and it's, but I mean, oh my goodness, like I mean, I don't want to say eyesight's overrated, but it's a little overrated with how much weight's put on it.
Oh yeah,
That
I
you
agree.
know,
I completely agree.
this is coming from a guy that was sighted for a good portion.
Yeah, I'm gonna cite
But
this conversation so many times in my life. Just that's my favorite quote so far. I've always said that if I was sighted, then I'd be a boring person. I think I'm much more interesting because I'm blind.
man, it's funny because it's all about perception, and your eyes don't actually make perception. That's not what a person sees anyway. I mean, the
True.
eyes they're just an organ that's sending electrical chemical responses back to the brain, and then it's your brain that puts together your vision of the world, and
Yep.
your understanding of the world and all. And which is why, like, if a person is sighted, or if you're dreaming at night, you're dreaming, and everything seems just like it is when you're awake. Because it's the same part of your brain putting everything together that it is, when you're asleep and that it is when you're awake. And that was a big thing to me. I think whenever I lost my eyesight, is that I was really afraid that I was going to forget what color looked like and what things looked like. Because I thought, well now I'm distant. I'm cut off from the world. Like suddenly I'm on this island, and the world is elsewhere. And I'm on like a tropical island with one coconut tree or one palm tree, and that's all there is. I'm just a castaway somewhere, and I'm going to lose touch with reality. And that's not the way, at least, and I shouldn't say that's the way it is for everyone, because I know different people go through different situations, and
Of course.
depression can be different for different people, and anger and all these different things. But that's certainly not the way that it has to be. And for most people that I know that have visual impairments, that's not the way it is for them. You learn how to appreciate the world in different ways, and you appreciate it just as much. It's hard to, it's hard to explain. Maybe I'm not that great with words. That might be why I paint.
Really? Because you've been, yeah, you've been killing it these past almost half an hour. This has been great. So
Oh,
to
thanks.
take us full circle, then, how did you develop all of these tactile techniques? How did you grow from this depressed guy um
Oh,
into what you're doing now? Because this is really really cool. I love this story.
oh, oh, thank you. I appreciate that, but I wish I could say I was so smart, and I just like, gosh, this makes complete sense. I'm going to do this, but the truth is, I was so angry and I was so depressed that I didn't feel like I could make any changes in my life. Like I was at a zero. But there's a benefit to that, because if you don't have anything, then you don't have anything to lose either. So you can do whatever
It's
you
true.
want. So I would go to school. The benefit of it during this time of not being able to read or write quite yet, I was relearning still, was that I didn't have any homework. So I would go to classes,
Wicked.
and I would get in incomplete. that I would make up later whenever I was able to do that. But then, and I would always make sure to be around friends or family, at least for a little bit every day. Because I learned from growing up that, depression is a thing, especially if you're dealing with health issues. So even if I didn't want to, I always made sure that I went to a coffee shop, I did something, where I was around other people for a little bit. But other than that, though, I would work on this drawing, and I was, and the idea, I was trying to I was walking to school one day after a year. I was able to do it independently. I would still, be like in a sweat by the time I'd get to school, because I was very used to listening for engine sounds and, listening to see if the engine's turning left or right. It all still sounded a little crazy, but I was able to do it. I was able to walk with a cane and do all this sort of stuff. And I happened to think that these curbs that I was following and the sidewalks, like you can feel the smoothness of the sidewalk, you can feel the cracks, you can feel where the grass is. If you come up on a tree, you know exactly where along the sidewalk you are. You're at this particular tree or a fire hydrant. And the curb is so much like a line that's just running through the city. And that line will run to another line, to another curb, another street that crosses it. And where those two streets cross, you know exactly where in the city you are, because those two streets only cross at one spot. And I thought, well, good grief, this is just like one line running into another line. And I thought, I'm using my sense of touch to navigate my way through a city. Surely I could use these same techniques and navigate across a canvas. It's much smaller. Surely it would work even better. Yeah. And so I started working on ways to try to draw in the way that I was getting around a room, using the same techniques that I get around a city. And it was, my brain still knew how to draw, and my hands still knew how to draw. The only thing that had really been lost was that connection, the eyesight between. So I just needed to be able to know what my hands were doing, and pair that up with what I was imagining in my mind, to be able. And O&M, cane training and all that was such a great place to start. Plus, and this is crazy, but with painting and all, visual artists have been thinking for centuries about how to understand the world, like our 3D world, in two-dimensional kind of ways. Like the easiest, the most simplest way to be able to reproduce what people see in a different kind of way. So a lot of the art techniques and stuff go right along with O&M, but people had never really thought about that. Visual arts. Vision's the first word in that title. Surely it's important, but it's not. It's really about the perception arts, about perceiving the world, and about putting that perception down in a two-dimensional kind of way, which is sort of the same way you do with O&M. You got your cane, you're trailing it along the ground, you're tapping or you're rolling, and you're getting this two-dimensional image of everywhere you go. And you're building that up into like a 3D sort of understanding, of the place where you are. So I just started combining those things together. But the wonderful thing about that was that every time that I tried to draw, every time that I painted, I was actually practicing my cane technique. I was practicing my O&M. So my orientation mobility skills got a lot better, a lot quicker, because I would paint 14 to 16 hours a day, 7 days a week, because I didn't have homework, and I was really, really angry, and I was really, really depressed, and art was my way of dealing with that sort of stuff. So whenever I was painting, whenever I was trying to draw, and I wasn't doing things like portraits or stuff, I was trying to draw things like a square, and then try to draw another square that was exactly like half the size of that first square. And, I would be feeling with one hand, because like if you're a visually impaired artist, you're going to use both hands. So I was using my left hand, my right hand too, but like to feel around, to feel the paint that I was using to draw with, to feel like the square, trying to, to make sure it was just right, and then using my other hand to put the paint down and then trying to touch it. And I was just sweating bullets, because there was just so much concentration trying to do this.
Right, the focus.
And then, but the great thing about art is like, well, I did this with the shapes. I did that for quite a while. And then I tried to work on my first drawing, which somebody had given me a wooden statue of Buddha, and I'm not Buddhist or anything, but I had it, and I loved that statue, and he was so happy, that statue.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, so I was, I thought, this is a nice model. I remember what it looks like, and I can touch and feel it, so I can actually feel it and try to draw it. And so I started trying to draw that little Buddha statue. And I started in the evening one night, and I would draw a little bit, and I have to crumple up the paper, and to draw a little bit and crumple up the paper. And I drew literally all night until the sun was up the next morning. I just had paper everywhere. It's like I was sitting on a little nest of paper on the floor. But I actually had a drawing of that Buddha statue though, and it was terrible. Oh my goodness, it was all misshapen and warped and twisted and not good. But I could feel it. I could say, this represents that Buddha statue, and I was so excited. I was more happy about that drawing than anything I'd ever drawn in my life. Any photorealistic, like portrait that I'd ever done, any blueprint, anything that I'd ever done. Because I knew with art, if you can do it a little bit, then you can do it a lot. You can keep adding to it. And that's really the brilliant thing about art. It's one of the things that I love the most, is that art is all about what you can do. What you can't do doesn't even enter into the equation. It doesn't even matter. It's not even a part of the discussion. So it's just about having an idea and wanting to do something, and then trying to figure out ways to make it happen. So you're just taking what you have and just working with that. And so I knew whenever I was drawing that Buddha that, if I could do this, then surely there's other things I could do, be able to add to it and just keep building from there. I didn't know where it would lead, but I could do something. That was good.
Yeah, that's a good start.
yeah, exactly. And
at the
time, I didn't. Yeah, at the time, I didn't think I would really be able to do anything. I was so depressed. I was so angry that I didn't think there could be any change. I didn't think there could be anything new. So the fact, even something small like a drawing, as silly as that sounds, to the depressed state that I was in, that was something at least, and it got my mind off of everything else. I was still going to school. I was still doing everything. I was still learning orientation, mobility. I was still learning jobs and all these other things that you have to learn when you lose your sight. But that wasn't helping my mental health at all. But in this gave me something else to focus on. I wasn't worried about the past. I wasn't concerned about the future. I just had to think about the paint on the end of the brush and try to get it where I wanted it to go. And that's all I had to think about. And that was nice. That was nice.
Yeah, absolutely.
Simplify things a bit.
I imagine. So what was your progression from there? How did you keep going? What was it like moving forward?
Well, I honestly, I thought I was crazy. I thought people would think I was nuts because I didn't know of any other visually impaired artists, and the idea just sounded crazy. Even the name visual arts is, the vision is in the first word of the name. So that seems really important. So I figured people would think I was crazy, so I didn't tell people that I was painting. There was just something that I kind of hid away for a while. But people started to find out because I was painting with oil paints, and oil paints don't wash off very well. So I would wash my hands, and I would think that they were clean. And I had this little white dog that would come up, Anne. She was my little dog. She was awesome. But I would pet her, and I would think my hands were clean, but I ended up getting like green paint, blue paint, purple, everything all over this poor little dog. My friends would come over and say, "What happened to Anne?" I don't know.
Oh my God.
She's just crazy. She gets into things, I guess. But so it kind of got out that I was painting. But I did that for, I'm not sure, for a couple of years or so, 3 years. And before I started showing or anything, and I started showing my artwork because I wanted to meet other artists. I was painting 14, 16 hours a day, every day, 7 days a week. Painting was my way of reconnecting with the world. So, it was just something that I needed to do every day. If I didn't, it's kind of like a sighted person. If they, it's kind of like if they said, I used my eyes all day yesterday. I saw all day yesterday. I don't really need to anymore. I'm good for the day. It's kind of that same idea. Painting was my way of seeing the world, of understanding it. So I painted every day. And after a few years, I wanted to meet other people that were just as obsessed with art as I was. So I started doing little shows, and I still didn't let anybody know that I was blind. Like, I wouldn't do a show opening. I would just hang the artwork, or we'd go there at the gallery or wherever, and we'd get the artwork hung, and then I would go away, and then the show would go on. And I would go back for a show closing because I needed to get the paintings and everything.
Yeah,
But
that's important.
yeah, yeah. So, but the shows ended up doing really well, and and that was encouraging. I mean, I never thought anybody would ever want a painting of mine, and it never even crossed my mind. I never thought. I mean, honestly, when I first started showing the work, I never thought anybody would want to buy a painting or like a painting. It was just I was doing it because I needed to. I just needed it to have this in my life. I needed to do depression for the anger, and just meet other people, that was just trying to connect with anybody. And the fact that the artwork was actually selling just blew my mind. And I thought, well, that's weird. That will never happen again. Every time a painting would sell, I go like, well, that's strange. Well, that was fun. That was a nice little lark. And
must have been an accident. Wow.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, wow, that was weird. Okay. Well,
and they didn't know that you were blind. They would just come in, see the art, and buy it.
Yeah. They, which was funny. And I had a time or two when I was at a gallery, and I was there. I didn't use a guide dog at the time. I used a white cane. So I had my white cane, and every once in a while, this happened maybe twice, but somebody asked, like, hey, do you know where the artist is? I want to ask about a painting. And I would say, oh, yeah, I'm the artist. I can help you. If you got a question, you want to talk about a painting? And they always thought I was joking. Like, it was like I was trying to pull their leg or something. And
oh, my God.
I don't know. So it was kind of, but then it did get out that I was blind, though. Like some articles were written, and that turned out to be the absolute best thing that could have happened, because I started to get phone calls and emails from different charities and different nonprofits. They wanted me to come and talk to their clients, to their people, and and asking if I could do workshops, if I could just be there with them, and that was incredible for me. And it was the most amazing thing, because I would go and I would talk to children that had autism. I would go and talk to older people that had Alzheimer's. I would talk to soldiers that had PTSD, and I traveled all over the country, just kind of going, just on the lark. If somebody said, hey, will you come talk? I was like, yeah, if you'll pay for the ticket, I'll come. So
yeah.
I started going all over the place, just talking to these different charities and nonprofits, and it was the most amazing thing, because everybody was dealing with something that was different, but we all got each other. We all understood each other, and I felt so much at home. I would talk to these people, and it was almost like we grew up in the same hometown or something. We were like instant friends, and I don't know. I felt the most at peace that I had in such a long time. And whenever I had lost my eyesight, I had this feeling like it may be different than everybody else. That I was isolated, that I was alone, and I started coming to the realization that maybe losing my eyesight actually just made me more like everyone else, because everybody is dealing with something. Most people face something in their life that seems bigger than they are, and they don't feel like that they can handle it all by themselves. They need help. So this is just part of being a person, just part of being human. And there's different reasons why we may feel this way, but but we all do. So I started to feel, I don't know, like more, I don't even know the word, but just like more connected with people. And then museums started to contact me, because my art was all about inclusion, and my workshops. I never charge anything for the workshops. They're always free. So I was doing lots and lots of art workshops and lots of places, and museums
really
were
cool.
saying, well, oh my goodness. Well, it was just art came to me at a time when it shouldn't have, really. I mean, good grief. There's visual art's a non-visual person. That just doesn't make sense.
Right.
So, and also, a lot of times when people have a disability, they don't just have one. They have multiple disabilities, or there's other things going on. You never know. Sometimes finances is a problem, because it often means more. I can't talk today. Doctor visits. There's medicines, all these different things. So paying for art or paying for something that might help like that, but you don't know for sure. It's an extravagance. It's a luxury, and so the workshops are always free, but these museums wanted to start becoming more inclusive. So I started writing different workshops and different lectures and different things. So I worked with the Metropolitan, the Guggenheim. We worked with dozens of museums all over the country, just setting up programs. And
That's
at
so
first,
cool.
I had like 30 different workshops. It's like I had a workshop for people in wheelchairs, with certain leg conditions. I had workshops for children who were visually impaired. Other workshops for professional artists that didn't have any kind of disability. But just different workshops for them. And then I came to the realization I had all these crazy workshops that you didn't have to do that. If you just made the workshops where they were sensory, where a person could use the senses that they use in everyday life. If you had a workshop where you could touch things and taste things and you could move around, you could do all, you could use your body, use your senses in the way that you're used to. You didn't have to have all these crazy different workshops. So I started doing these workshops where like a professional artist would be seated right next to a child who's never seen before, and sitting right next to someone that might have painted when they were young, but they'd never done it, since then, and just this huge mix of people. And it seems like it would be a chaotic mess, but it's the most fun. We're laughing. I've never done a workshop where we're not just laughing and having a great time. And it's so cool because that professional artist who has their degree in art, that's how they make their living. That little girl, that little person right next to them who's never seen, and it's their first time painting, is asking questions about color and design that professional artist has never thought about before. It's a completely different perspective, and it's an important perspective. And so everybody is adding their own individual ideas, their own individual talents to it. And instead of it being this chaotic mess, it's just fun. We're laughing. We're having a good time. It's kind of funny because in these museums, and most museums are almost quite like a church. Like you see people passing through, and they're like, all right, we're looking at a painting, now we're moving, we're looking at this painting. But in the workshops and the groups that I have when I go in, we're all laughing, we're going through the music playing. We might be drinking some stuff, we might be eating some stuff,
I love that.
We're tasting the, oh my goodness. Like I did a workshop once where there was a painting of the Pope hanging in one of the galleries there. So I had an actor dress up like a Pope. And of course, he wasn't a pope, but you could still ask him anything you wanted. He tried to answer it, but it was just fun. And there was one where there was a painting of Spanish dancers, so I had some Spanish dancers come through, and they taught us some dance steps, and they danced, and they listened to music, and there's things to touch, there's things to feel. If there's a lady wearing a silk dress, then we'll have some silk samples and things to feel, and we'll have maybe some Italian food or something, if it's an Italian painting. And I know that might sound kind of silly, because people will say, well, even if we're talking about a woman with a silk dress and a painting, even if you can see it, what difference does it make actually being able to touch it, to touch silk or to be able to taste the food or listen to the music? But the truth is, it excites the brain in incredible ways. And it just activates. Like it's just crazy to be able to, for instance, like to smell the smell of green grass. We'll bring all these different smells in, in little vials. To smell that while somebody is talking about or looking at a landscape painting, it makes your brain fire in unique ways, and you will never forget that painting.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's just incredible. We've done workshops with people who have Alzheimer's. And they're coming up with memories. They're remembering things that they haven't thought about in years. And it's just crystal clear, and they're just having this great time. Their families are having a great time. And it's just, I don't know. I'm sorry, I'm just rambling on. I get really excited.
No, I love these stories. This is so cool. I love hearing this.
Oh, my goodness.
Because I've never heard anything like this. This is so unique to me.
Well, thank you. We did this one workshop in Austin, and there was I just want to tell you this quick story because I just love it. It's these two brothers.
Yeah, please do.
this one brother he had never seen before, and the other brother was sighted. And of course, they grew up together, obviously.
I would hope so.
But they had never done any kind of art. They'd never like drawn together or done anything like that. So I was doing this art workshop, and we had like 400 or 500 people that were visually impaired, I think, at this workshop, and their families. So it was huge. But I remember these two brothers, and they were both going to work on the drawing of the house. So I had shown the brother that was visually impaired how to draw using this paint that lets raised lines. So he was drawing he was drawing the house, and his sighted brother was drawing the same house. But what I thought was so interesting was that the sighted brother was drawing like the typical kind of house that you would expect. It had like this peaked roof, and had 2 windows and a door, had a tree out in the front yard, and the family out there, and they're all smiling, like a stick-figure sort of family. There was a sun up in the sky. It's a type of drawing that a person would have seen 100 times. Right. But it was their family, and it was their house, and it was what he thought about it. So that was his idea of what it looked like. Now his brother, who had been blind since birth, he was also drawing the same house, but his house was like a blueprint, and you could see where the living room was, and how that flowed into the kitchen, how that flowed into the hallway and into the bedrooms. And what I thought was so cool was that this was just their perception of their home. And both were right. Both were absolutely correct. And if you took both of their paintings and you put them together, you got a better understanding, a better idea of what their home was like. You got this warm, loving family. You got this house that they love. And you got the idea of how the house actually flowed together and how, what the house looked like.
Oh, so and I thought, how interesting. Each other.
Exactly. And I thought that's so perfect, because whenever you think about blind people painting, about blind people getting into visual arts, their voice is just as important as anyone else's. Because what art is just communication. It's just expressing ideas, and the lines, the colors, they're just symbols. It's just ways of from one person transferring the information to another person, having them understand it, and so you have emotions, you have ideas. Art doesn't take place in the eyes, it takes place in the brain. It takes place in the heart. It's just ideas, it's feelings, it's emotions. And that's all art is. And this idea that being visual, that's just the way most people will take it in. That's the way most people will understand that information. Not everybody, but most people. But when you talk about visual art, the vision is only about the way most people take it in. It's not about what it means. It's not even about how it was created. You don't need eyesight to be able to understand art or appreciate art, and you don't need eyesight to be able to create art. And that realization to me was staggering. Completely changed the way that I thought about art. And this from a guy that drew before he could walk. But I realized I didn't realize until I lost my eyesight what art truly was. It took going blind for me to understand what visual art actually meant. But visual art is incredible. It makes so many changes to it. So
that's amazing.
I apologize. I rambled. I get excited.
That's incredible. Like you've changed the way that I look at art and the way that I think about these workshops. Because I attended like some basic ones when I was really young, and these kinds of workshops, they sound so immersive on a sensory level, and that's a really unique concept to me. Are there virtual editions of these in the time of COVID? Are we able to still participate in these kinds of things?
Oh, yes, I sure am. Right before COVID, I was flying about two or three times a month, working with different nonprofits and museums and charities, and doing talks and doing workshops and showing and all this fun stuff. And I thought when COVID hit, I thought, well, I guess that's it for a while. And it was like, I don't travel, but I'm probably doing more workshops and stuff than I did before, because it's so easy, for me to be in the studio back there painting, and then, for a school, for a classroom to want to do a workshop, I'm like, heck yeah, let's do it. I'll just flip on the cameras and we'll do a quick workshop. So I've been doing a lot of them, and it's been a lot of fun. I've done it with libraries. I've done it in school. I've done it with businesses. I've done some speaking events for galas for different things, for different types of things. So it's been very, very different, but I've been so happy that I've been able to still connect. And one of the things we started doing with COVID is that we started streaming on Facebook, and we're doing it once a week right now, but we were doing it twice a week. But that has been so nice because I've talked to so many different people, and especially some people with disabilities who aren't going out as much. They're not even around their family as much. So being able to connect on Facebook and just being able to do like a live stream, it's just been so much fun. So we'll get on there and chat. And it's silly, but it's fun. It's
cool. Is that on your personal Facebook? People can find it?
It's on my art page and my personal page. We share it all over. And then we also share it on YouTube, but the chat's all on Facebook. So if somebody went to my personal page or my art page, it'll pop up. But it's very, very silly, I should say.
Awesome. That's great. That is perfect. That's what the people want to hear.
There we go. But it is fun though, because like we'll have other visually impaired artists that'll just tune in and they'll start sharing their experiences and things, and that's always fun.
That is really cool. I love this concept. So where can people buy your work? Where can people find out about workshops? All these different things. How can people keep in touch with you?
It's pretty easy, really. It's just my last name, Bramblitt, Bramblitt, and it's Bramblitt at .com, and it's Bramblitt at Gmail, and on Facebook it's Bramblitt, and on Instagram it's Bramblitt. It's everywhere. So it makes it really easy for me. The only thing I have to remember is my last name, and then I'm good. And then if people forget, and if you go on Google and you type in blind painter, then I'll pop up. So if you can't remember my name, you can find me that way.
Let's see. I want to see where you are on Google. I want to see which.
Oh, that's fine.
You are the first result for blind painter on Google.
Really?
Look at that. You hit it big time, man.
Yeah.
Serious.
I'm Facebook famous. Yay.
Yeah, absolutely. You've gone viral, pal.
Oh, that's a bad thing to say at this time on this year, isn't it? With the whole COVID thing.
I know, yeah. Absolutely. And now you're going to be on Supersense as well. We'll have this out very soon. We'll have you on our newsletter as well to promote this. I love the message here. I love everything that we've been talking about. This has been absolutely one of my favorites in the Supersense Presents series. This has been so cool to hear your message and your story. I love hearing all of this. As a blind person, I don't ordinarily have other conversations with blind people that really change my outlook on something. This was one of those conversations that was just really illuminating for me on this topic. So thank you so much for giving me an entire hour of your time. This has been a ton of fun for me.
Oh man, thank you so much. I enjoyed chatting with you so much, and thank you so much for what you're doing. I mean, you're putting out a very positive message during this time when that's what people need the most. There's so much fear. There's so much scary things on the news right now, but you're working hard, putting out a message that helps to combat that. So, thank you so much for everything that you're doing.
My pleasure. Thank you. Really appreciate your time, John. This has been John Bramblitt. You can look him up everywhere. Bramblitt, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. There we go. Thank you guys so much. We'll see you next time. This has been Supersense Presents with John Bramblitt.